The next question comes from Tom Seymour. He writes in January, Jeff Gundlach was quoted, "China is uninvestable, in my opinion, at this point. I've never invested in China long or short. Why is that? I don't trust the data. I don't trust the relationship between the United States and China anymore. I think that investments in China could be confiscated. I think there's a risk of that," end quote. Obviously, with a significant percentage of the Daily Journal's marketable securities invested in BYD and Alibaba, you feel differently. Please explain why you are right.
Well, of course, only the future knows who's going to be right. But China is a big modern nation. It's got this huge population and this huge modernity that's come in the last 30 years. And we invested some money in China because we could get more value in terms of the strength of the enterprise and the price of the security than we could get in the United States. Other people, including Sequoia, the leading venture capital firm in the United States, have made the same decision we have. But I'm sympathetic to Gundlach. If he's nervous, he doesn't have to join us. Different folks have different opinions. I feel about Russia the way he feels about China. I don't invest in Russia, so I can't criticize Gundlach's point of view. It's just I reached a different conclusion.
Okay. This question comes in from Bill Roberts, and he says, Charlie, you and Warren have been making concentrated investments since the 1950s. Many of these investments have led to gains, but even more impressively, none of them have led to significant losses. As far as I can tell, neither one of you has lost more than a few percentage points of equity on any single investment. Daily Journal has recently bet a large amount of its capital on Alibaba and foreign traded stock. It's also taken on an additional $40 million in margin debt to make these investments. What makes you so sure that these investments won't lead to a substantial impairment of Daily Journal's equity capital, which would impact the company's ability to reinvest the resources needed to develop the company's software operating business?
Well, of course, if you invest in marketable securities, you have the risk that they'll go down and you'll lose money instead of make it. But if you hold a depreciating currency, that's losing purchasing power. On balance, we prefer the risks we have to those we're avoiding, and we don't mind a tiny little bit of margin debt.
I got lots and lots of questions on Alibaba. That was the one question that I received more than any other, so I'll dig a little deeper through some of these. Someone named Vishal Patel from Toronto wrote in and said that as a Daily Journal owner, do we own local shares of Alibaba? Does that actually give us legal ownership of that business, or do we have a variable interest, and is that the same? Net, what do we own? And I did get a series of questions related to that same sort of thought.
When you buy Alibaba, you do get a sort of a derivative, but assuming there's a reasonable honor among civilized nations, that risk doesn't seem all that big to me.
Got a lot of questions just about the investing in China risks, and I'll ask this one from Ravi Mehta. He's interested in your take on China and Chinese stock exposure for the long term. He says it's becoming quite evident that Chinese companies could be banned from doing business in the Western world, or maybe some of the Eastern countries too, because of the number of the following reasons. 1, the security threat issues. 2, the potential conflict over Taiwan. 3, inability to meet Western accounting standards. And number 4, human rights issues. Considering all of the risks mentioned above, why would anyone as smart as Munger or Buffett consider investing in China or any of the Chinese companies?
Well, we did it for a very simple reason. We got more strength per dollar invested. In China, the companies we invest in are stronger relative to their competition and priced lower. That's why we're in China.
This one came in from Wasim. He said, although the financials seem strong, do the political pressures from the Chinese government worry you at all?
Well, the Chinese government is worrying all the capitalists in the world way more than it used to. And of course we don't like that. And we wish that China and the United States got along better. And if you stop to think about it, think of how massively stupid both China and the United States have been to allow the existing tensions to arise. What bad is ever going to happen to China or the United States if we two are close? If we make good friends out of the Chinese and vice versa, who in the hell is ever going to bother us? Of course we should make friends with China. And of course we should learn to get along with people who have a different system of government. We like our government because we're used to it and it has advantages of personal freedom. China could never have handled its life with a government like ours. They wouldn't be in the position they're in. They had to prevent 500 million or 600 million people from being born in China. They just measured the women's menstrual periods when they came to work and aborted those who weren't allowed to have children. You can't do that in the United States, and it really needed doing in China. And so they did what they had to do using their methods, and I don't think we should be criticizing China, which has terrible problems because they're not just like the United States. They do some things better than we do. They should like us and we should like them. So I think nothing is crazier than people who foment resentments on either side of that one.
Another shareholder named Lee, L.I., wrote in and said, how do you think the Ukraine situation will be resolved in your opinion?
Well, I have no insight that's any better than anybody else on that one. Most of these things in the days when both parties have huge numbers of hydrogen bombs get resolved because the alternative is so awful that even an idiot can see that the question ought to be resolved. That's the way it's worked so far, and I hope it keeps working that way. We live in the Pax Nucleana. We've gotten an absence of world wars for a long time because we had these nuclear weapons. It's been a blessing to humanity, but it does make you nervous every once in a while, and it's quite irresponsible when the leaders in the modern age get over tensions over border incidents and so forth.
You said that we should partner up with China. Does it concern you to see Russia partnering up with China and that relationship getting a little cozier?
It's hard to think of anything that's more stupid. And both sides are doing it. The political leaders on each side are trying to make points with their own constituencies by showing how tough they are. That is massively stupid on both sides.
Another question came in on Alibaba, and I know that we've covered a lot of ground on this. I'll ask that because it's slightly different. This one comes from John Mooney in Marshfield, Massachusetts. And he says, Charlie, Alibaba is a top 3 holding for you. It sells at a steep discount to its U.S. peers. Best comparable is Amazon, which is triple Alibaba's PE. So what discount should U.S. investors seek when buying Chinese stocks, considering the political, regulatory, and especially the ownership structure risk? Oh, and considering the fortune Berkshire made on your BYD suggestion, why doesn't Buffett buy Alibaba?
Well, Warren, like many other intelligent people, likes to invest where he's personally comfortable. And for some reason, I'm more comfortable with the Chinese than he is. That's a minor difference. But I have all kinds of places where I'm just like Warren. I have all kinds of things where I'm not comfortable, and I just don't go near them. I think an old guy is entitled to invest where he wants to invest in.
What makes you uncomfortable? What do you not?
It's okay to have some things that you just don't want to bother with.
Like Like crypto, I got
I
lots
don't think
of questions on
Alibaba
that.
I don't think Alibaba is as entrenched as something like Apple and Alphabet. I think the internet is going to be a very competitive place, even if you're a big internet retailer.